Good
Good
morning.
morning. How are you today?
All good, all good. So let's get into this quickly. The highlights that we will be talking about that we found for the news for the last week or so. South Africa hosted G20 agricultural talks focused on food security and climate resilience. Heavy rainfall slashes South African raisin forecast by nearly 20%. South Africa eyes fresh fruit trade boost with India through new agreement. Zimbabwe begins long-awaited compensation for displaced white farmers, and Tanzania bans South African agri imports in regulatory trade move. And then we're also quickly going to touch on the orange juice price. So that's it for the headlines. Let's get going.
Yes, so we're good to go. I think it's very exciting. Dewald, are you starting with number one?
Yes, but let's just say it's in South Africa at the moment. We're in the middle of an April full of holidays. Just came out of Easter, and then the next week is probably also going to be full of holidays with the schools being closed. So everybody's stuck at home with their kids. Good luck with that.
School's closed, and we've got our Freedom Day coming up and Workers' Day. So April is always a bit crazy, especially when you throw Easter into the mix. But here we are.
Yes, again. Okay, so number one, this week South Africa is hosting the G20 Agriculture Working Group and Food Security Task Force meetings in Durban from April 23rd to 25th. The discussion focuses on data-driven approaches to food security, inclusive agricultural investment, and climate resilience. Minister John Steenhuisen emphasizes Ubuntu principles, advocating for collective action to address global agricultural challenges. So this is an article on Fresh Plaza. And we will probably be seeing after the 25th, like updates. Minister Steenhuisen is very active on social media, especially on LinkedIn, where he shares a lot of the info. He puts out all videos almost daily from his visits and talks and all of this. So we would be keen to see what comes from this.
Yes, I have already seen some stuff in the feed. I saw this morning pictures of him touring the facility, and it's very exciting that we are having something at such a high level in our country. I mean, we've had a bit of bad press internationally with President Trump, so that we've the G20 Agricultural Working Group happening in Durban is very exciting for our country.
Yes, I just wish Mr. Trump did come to see actually how it is on the ground. It's not always as being portrayed by our fantastic politicians as being this divided country. For those interested, they must come and go and listen to the podcast we did with Bartley and Kuchle and also some of the stuff that's been in the public lately. So it's not as what the people seem to portray it is.
For sure. Completely agree with you. One needs to come and visit our country and see on the ground what things really look like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the next one is the raisin forecast that's down by nearly 20%. So for those, although the South African table grape season was pretty good in general, we tend to forget that a lot of the grapes that does not get packed gets made into raisins, and then also there is the raisin industry itself, with varieties being grown particularly for raisins. So raisins being a dry product, it needs to be dry, can't get wet. And there's been some big rainstorms that's gone through that part of the Northern Cape that has significantly impacted the raisin crop. So let's just read the headline here. Heavy rainfall in February and March has led to nearly 20% reduction in South African raisin crop forecast. Raisins SA now expects a marketable yield of 84,000 tons, down from an initial estimate of 104,000 tons. The rain affected drying processes, particularly in the Northern Cape's eastern production area.
Yes, and I think what is important to mention is the reason why raisins are produced in such mass in the northern Cape along the Orange River region is because of its climate. So the grapes are beautifully sweet, and then there is this incredible amount of sun. Normally they have hot sunny days every day throughout the year, but occasionally there is a bit of rain. And these are sun-dried raisins, so they are put out under the African sun to dry. So when it rains, there's no protection.
And also a lot of the raisins are actually dried on the vine. So they just leave the bunches to get as ripe as possible, and then the raisins will just simply shrivel up and dry on the vines without it being cut at all. And then it gets harvested.
Okay.
So 2 years ago, we were in the Orange River, and our Mrs. TikTok over here, who tends to get a lot more views on TikTok than I do, made a quick little video of how raisins are made. So let's just share that. And for those who's not following us on TikTok, you go click a follow there as well.
For those of you who have enjoyed raisins and wondered about how raisins are made or where they come from, we've got some people making raisins here. So let's have a look. Fresh grapes dumped onto the raisin drying area and being spread out by a rake to dry in the sun. Here you can see the difference between the newly spread grapes on the right and the completed raisins on the left. So here we have raisins. Take a look at that. Beautifully sun-dried, sweet raisins. Good morning. Yes, so you can imagine what rain on that would do. So there it is.
Well, there's always a lot of. This is probably one of our most viewed videos on our TikTok, and it still gets views every single day because people are interested in raisins. So there's questions here as to how do you wash the raisins, because now people say dust blows on them, and how do you keep the birds away, and how do you keep bird poo from the raisins? So it's all a lot of interesting questions that you can't wash them, because then you just it defeats the process. So there are processes that they use to sort those kind of problems out.
To clean them, yes, and to clean out impurities and things along the way. So they do that. But it is interesting to see huge tracts like that of raisins drying. And I know that they also have them on raised, almost like table trough things that they use that they dry them on. But it is quite incredible to see the process.
Yeah, and if you find one that's gritty, just know you're getting your trace elements in.
For sure. Okay. So I think, what is the next title? We're talking about the Indian trade deal?
Yes, and you just did a big article on that, so tell us about
it. This is really good news. The South African delegation has returned from India after positive talks on the new trade deal aimed at increasing bilateral trade in fresh fruit. Discussions with Indian officials focused on expanding market access for South African fruit, signing a potential strengthening of trade ties between the two countries. This is extremely good news, because South Africa has been pushing to open the Indian market for South African fruit, and it has quite a lot more fruit has been going to India in the last, let's call it 3 to 5 years. Citrus exports have grown quite considerably. And one of the things that was holding the citrus exports back was the cold treatment, the in-transit cold treatment for lemons. And after some pilot studies and things, this has actually been worked out. And the first in-transit lemons for India arrived in March this year. So it has been successful, and it's been a big day for the South African citrus industry that this has been successful, and that they will be being able to export more lemons to India, because of course India people are largely vegetarian, and they're looking for high value, good quality fresh produce. So that's good news. And then last year the Indian market opened. Excuse me, these things happen. Last year, the Indian market opened for South African avocados, which is very good news. And the first shipments have already gone, and it looks likely that this is going to grow quite a bit going forward.
And those are also under fumigation protocols.
If you say so, then that is probably the case. And also the apple and pear exports have grown quite considerably. So that is very good news. And one of the things that's been holding it back, has been holding the trade back, has been the very high import tariff of 30%. And one of the comments that I saw in articles was that the Indian trade has warned South Africa that, you really need to see if you can't get a better deal with the government so that you can reduce this, so that you can be more competitive. And it's been really good to see this. The South African industry, fruit industry and government has been working very hard to try and better our trade with India. So if a new deal has been signed and things are looking good, this is extremely good news for our fresh produce sector. So well done to the guys that are doing this.
And just to touch on that, and tariffs is like, there's been words in agriculture that's been circulating. Each year seems to have a new word. A couple of years ago, it was sustainability. Everything had to be about sustainability. Then it was regenerative. And now this year, it seems that the word of the year is tariffs.
So, introduced by our dear friend President Trump. One would almost think it was a 4-letter word, but not quite.
Yeah, and if we've got a 30% tariff on our fruit going into India, which is high, we've also heard that nearly, I might be screwing up the number here, but something like 90% of the pears consumed in India is South African pears. Does the tariff play a role?
Yeah, so it's one of those things. At least there's action and things are happening, and our industry and government are working together. And if there's a potential, if there's a new trade deal, and it sounds like extremely good news for us, especially with our country's growing volumes of fruit for export. We need all the markets we can get, and there are over 1 billion people in India that survive largely off fruit and vegetables. So it is the market for us to go to. And we have been hearing a lot of good things about India lately. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this is going to be a really good new initiative for our country.
Yeah. As much as I would like to visit India, I can't see myself staying there because the vegetarian, vegan part doesn't accommodate me.
Yes, dear Walt.
Okay, so in other news, closer to home, Zimbabwe begins compensating displaced white farmers. So Zimbabwe has initiated compensation payments to white farmers who lost land during the early 2000s land reform program. The government dispersed $3.1 million to 378 farms. Okay, let's just do I just want to do a calculation on that. What does that entail? 3,123 divided by, that's $8,200 per farm to drop in a bucket. Very small drop, representing 1% of the total $311 million claim. The remaining amount will be settled through treasury bonds over a 10-year period. This move aims to mend relations with Western nations and is part of a broader strategy to resolve Zimbabwe's debt issues. Okay. If I can add 2 cents onto that, as we just said, $8,200 per farm is a drop in a bucket. It could pay for a nice holiday for those people receiving it. I just don't see how they're going to be doing it. $311 million claim. Zimbabwe doesn't have, they are not financially sound. And having been there, I don't know, are they paying this in bank transfers or are they paying this in cash? Because everything in Zimbabwe was working on cash when I was there.
Yes, this is certainly interesting, and it's 20 years after the fact. So now, all those people that were displaced, where are they in the world? And is this, this compensation? It would be very interesting to hear from dispossessed Zimbabwean farmers about how this is unfolding and what this means and what their thoughts are on this. So this is a very interesting story, and I think it would be very interesting to watch this and see where this goes. This is our neighboring country, and
Yes.
this is from 2 decades ago. And we all sat and watched this agog and with shock, and the fact that these farmers were dispossessed and chased off their land, and often violently, was kind of a scary thing for us as the neighboring country. And land is still a emotive matter. So the story certainly deserves to be watched and listened and seen where it's going.
Look, the thing about what I saw when I was in Zimbabwe is that everything is in cash. The people do not trust the bank. It's not that they don't trust the banks. It's that overnight, if you earn $1,000, for instance, somebody pays into your bank account, it goes in at a certain exchange rate, whatever that may be. Overnight, Zimbabwe would change the exchange policies. So overnight, your $1,000 that was worth $1,000 yesterday is now worth zero, or only worth $100 worth of value. So it is a very screwed up system. It's very difficult to understand when you're on the ground. So how this is being paid is it would be very interesting to know. Just that's all I'm saying.
Yes, and indeed, and if anybody knows more about this and can tell us a little bit more, it actually would be lovely to hear from you.
Yes. Okay, so the next one, the Tanzanian. Are you going to take this?
Okay, fine. Tanzania imposes trade ban on South African agricultural products. In response to restrictions on its produce, Tanzania has imposed a reciprocal trade ban on agricultural products from South Africa and Malawi. The ban affects imports and exports, escalating a trade standoff that began with South Africa's embargo on Tanzanian bananas. This development could disrupt regional agricultural trade and supply chains. Well, here we go again. More tariffs, more bans, more issues backward and forward between countries.
Okay, the sources listed here is the Citizen and IOL. Okay. IOL can be dodgy at best of moments, but it was the one I could read without paying for it. So, from what I understand, is that there's obviously people ban certain products due to very different reasons, not necessarily a tariff reason or we want to produce it in our country or whatever. We've got, and this came out in a podcast we did last year with Xylon from the Roy Nursery, is that South Africa's, and particularly in the Roy, have got one of the only strains of banana that's resistant to some either pest or disease or virus or something, which obviously, and he said that if you eat a banana in South Africa, that's probably from one of their plants. So it could be that we've banned the products, and I didn't see it like that because of phytosanitary reasons. But it sounds like Tanzania has now just said, well, screw you. If you don't take our bananas, then we won't take anything from you. And something that we need to just check up on that I couldn't find anything in my search now. We spoke about it. I think it was True Cape that opened up a big apple cold stores. It was either in Tanzania or Kenya. I can't remember.
I think it was Kenya, Dewald. I'm not sure, but if I remember correctly, it was Kenya. And but this is one of those things. Again, it's a story worth watching to see what's going on here and why is this happening. And so often these things are between politicians and so on, but the people on the ground are now going to struggle because they're not actually going to be able to get hold of fresh produce.
And a big part of the article was that Tanzania supplies most of the avocados in South Africa in the later part of the year, like October, November, December, that time when there's the local market, our local producers are not producing for the local market. So, but if everything goes to plan and the Western Cape starts producing avos like it's been planted here, it would kind of fill most of that gap, I would presume.
Well, it will certainly make the avocado season in South Africa longer, and so these things are all developing and ongoing, and so we'll have to just follow up and see where that's going.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to quickly touch on. I'll just put it up on the screen here. The orange juice future price. Right. So it's currently sitting at 267.71, and I presume that's per pound of oranges. And I went to dig a little bit deeper into this thing. So that is just for last day. So if we go a week, you can see that for the last, it had a peak in September, and then it took a bit of a dive to where we are sitting today. Okay, so it peaked at 555.42. So now it took a bit of a dive. So that's for the. But if you go look at the last 10 years, the last 10-year data, there's been a steady, and especially from 2021 onwards, there's just been a steady rise in the price of orange juice. So it peaked, it took a significant dip, but it slowly looks like the trend is going upwards again. So are we going to see another 2024 orange juice market? We don't know yet. But if somebody,
a backstory here, Dewald, why did that happen?
Yeah, we've discussed that about the droughts and everything in Brazil previously. I just thought it would be interesting to bring in, the data as it sits at the moment. So it could be that from, let's say, 2021, it slowly started affecting the orange price, what's been happening in Brazil. But it looks like it's just going up. So people following stocks and Forex and all these kind of things will understand these kind of graphs. So I just thought it would be interesting to share.
Indeed. And, the next 2 or 3 years will tell what the orange juice price is going to do and what people that are growing oranges are going to do, whether they're going to choose to send it to the juice factory and produce more for that, or whether they're going to continue with exports only. So that graph is a very telling graph, and the fact that there's been such a big drop makes it interesting to see what will happen over the next in the next short to medium term.
Yep. Yeah. So from our side, that's it for the news.
That's it. It's been lovely chatting, and there is certainly a lot happening. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to us. And exciting news about India. That's fantastic. We're really excited about those opportunities for our country.
All right. There we go.
Thanks a lot.
Cheerio.
Bye.